gentlemen. You ready, gentlemen? All right, it is April 19th, it is 6 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting into session. If we can stand and do our pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, gentlemen, we have a typical agenda tonight. We have meeting minutes to review. We have normal session and executive session. We have 2 invited guests. We have 3 on the docket, but Jacqueline Pilot will not be able to make it tonight, so we have Senator Moore coming in to discuss the budget, the proposed budget before the legislature. We have Jessica Strunk, did I say that correctly? Strunken, from the 495 Metro West Partnership to update us on economic development. We have recognition. Gentlemen, do we have any recognition tonight?
I have one item. Yes.
Okay, I also have some. We have the manager's report. We have a motion to approve a resolution calling for full funding of the foundation budget this year for the school budget. We have a discussion on our upcoming fiscal year budget. We have a motion to, or discuss a motion to recommend a tax title revolving fund. I believe our treasurer collector will be here tonight also to talk about that. We have the warrant for our annual town meeting to execute. We have scholarship applications for us to discuss and grade and rank. We have a motion to approve a wastewater sludge removal proposal. And we have a proclamation for Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. Are there any meeting look-ads we want to talk about or prepare for? Nope. No? Any new business or unforeseen business? Nope. No? Okay. And then we have an executive session tonight that we will most likely hold at the conclusion of this meeting, but prior to a FinCon meeting that we'll be attending or afterwards. If we don't have enough time to do it in between the 2 meetings, we will conduct it after the end of the FinCon meeting. Okay, gentlemen? Mm-hmm. So, meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the regular session meeting minutes dated April 5th, 2016, as previously submitted.
I'll second that motion.
Show that as unanimous action of the board.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the regular session meeting minutes dated April 7th, 2016, as previously submitted.
Second that motion.
Show that as unanimous action of the board.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the executive session meeting minutes dated April 5th, 2016, as previously submitted.
And friendly amendment, that's for both sessions, both topics?
Yes.
Second that motion.
Show that as unanimous action of the board. So, Jessica, you're up.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for your time today. It sounds like you have a very full agenda, or is this the normal?
It's typical for us, yeah.
Okay. So I'm from the 495 Metro West Partnership. We're a regional economic development organization, but we're a little bit unique in that we are public and private. We work with 35 communities very often along 495. We stretch from Westford in the north along Route 2 down to Foxborough and Shrewsbury to Natick. And we work on issues related to economic development, a lot of which deals with infrastructure concerns and constraints. So we have a focus on transportation infrastructure, but also water infrastructure, and other economic development issues. What I brought for you this evening is our 2015 annual report that discusses our accomplishments in the past year. But what is probably more interesting and just came out is our Strength in Numbers report, the 2016 edition. So this is a regional demographic report that we do each year that highlights why our region matters, why the state should invest in our region, and why companies should locate in our region, and what makes it great to live here as well. So we have, a couple of the highlights include the annual payroll in our region, which has once again risen. It's currently at $22.5 billion. We are home to 111 jobs statewide. Our unemployment has consistently been, I see the senator has arrived, has consistently been lower than not only the nation's, but lower than the state's unemployment rate. And our educational attainment is quite high, as well as our housing prices and commercial real estate prices being competitive. So this is our newest regional report. We just released it last week at our State House Day. And then we break the numbers down by municipalities, and we see this as a resource for our communities. This is all publicly available data, but it's about the time that it takes to pull it all together. And then we use it for our advocacy efforts. So I hope that you find this useful. If you have any questions about it, feel free to ask me. I've also included in the papers before you our board of directors list, which demonstrates, I think, our broad constituency. So we have public officials, we have town planners, business executives, and essentially our bylaws are quite specific in different categories. So even those representing environmental interests, higher education in the region, et cetera. Another item in here is a breakdown of the governor's new economic development legislation, and I have to admit that my colleague, Paul Matthews, the executive director, put that together, but I can still answer some questions about it. And he was on the council that was advising the governor and Secretary Jay Ash of Housing and Economic Development what their economic development plan should look like under the new administration. And one of the things that we had commented on and have subsequently noted as an addition to the plan and is reflected in the legislation as well is further attention to suburban communities. So initially the plan talked about rural and urban communities, and we deal with suburban communities. So our input was that we would like to see some further attention from the new administration on the suburbs. Additionally, while the plan mentioned an attention to transportation infrastructure, we noted that in terms of economic development, that water infrastructure is equally important, whether it's access to water or wastewater treatment, and nowadays particularly stormwater management. And since offering those comments, those were water infrastructure was incorporated into the plan as well. So that's one way that the partnership works to, I think, enhance our communities and the region as a whole. And then finally in here is a list of the membership as well as the initial legislation that creates it's a lengthy name, so I apologize for that, but the 495 Metro West Suburban Edge Community Commission. And they have not gotten going yet, but the thought behind this commission is while there's been a lot of attention on gateway cities, and that's great, there should be attention on gateway cities, we feel that there needs to be a balancing with attention to suburban communities' needs. Gateway cities need help, but they also have a lot more resources than many of our communities. And so when it comes time to apply for grants, whether it's a MassWorks or something like that, they kind of get an extra box that they get to check. So we want to see some kind of balancing in terms of what our communities can achieve and what resources they can tap into to advance their economic development goals. So I've kind of thrown a lot at you. Okay. The other thing I would note is in terms of our transportation work, I do sit on the Central Mass MPO Advisory Committee, and I was there when Blythe presented on your project. And in fact, it came up at the time about breaking it down into 2 phases and how that could benefit the project as a whole in terms of getting into the long-range transportation plan. We just met again recently to prioritize the next set of projects for the years 2020 and 2021. And I advocated, as I would for any of our communities, but I advocated for the Upton Phase 2 project, the one that would continue the Hartford Ave, High Street, and Hopkinton Road. And reminded the group too that, look, they were willing to break this up into 2 phases. They should get some credit for that, and let's not stall the second phase to that project. So I would also like to report that the MassDOT capital investment plan just came out, the 5-year plan, the draft. And there is a public comment period going on right now, and that project is listed in there. So that's excellent news, and we'll continue to advocate for our communities, whether it's road projects, or we also tell our communities, because we have 35 and you're looking at half the staff, to just let us know when you're applying for a state grant. We're always happy to write a letter of support, but we can't keep track of what everyone's applying for, so you do have to reach out to us. And similarly, we send Blythe notices, but if there's anyone else, any of you who would like to receive notices about our committee meetings, we see those as a resource for our communities. And they focus, there's a water resources committee, a transportation committee, and then an energy and sustainable development. So if anyone wants to receive those notices, just let me know, we'll add you to those lists. Other areas that we advocate for our communities, Chapter 90 money. We know it's never enough. Also MS4, as the new permit comes out from the EPA. We are hosting the EPA on May 24th to come update communities on what the new draft looks like. And consistently over the many years that this has been developing, we have advocated for our communities in terms of the challenges they will face in implementing this permit, the costs associated with it, but also the time and resources that will be needed in terms of the requirements for the new permit. So that is a sampling of what we do, and I'd be
Okay.
happy to take any questions.
Going to open up to the board. Any comments?
Oh,
Jim, Bob?
thank you for coming in tonight, very informative. One of the things, and maybe I'm stepping forward too fast, but it seems to me that I've heard that the partnership is involved in some working with the state to address the gridlock on 495 between the Mass Pike and Route 9,
Yes.
which anyone that commutes that way at any time of day is clearly aware of what that backup is like. Can you expound on that a
Oh,
little
I
bit?
certainly can. It takes up a lot of my time.
Okay.
Not just when I'm sitting in the car. We have been advocating for improvements to that area. Initially, Congressman McGovern was able to get an earmark to study the interchange of 495 and 9. And subsequently, the state provided additional resources to expand the scope of the study to include 495-90, which, as we all know, is appropriate because one affects the other. So where things currently stand is MassDOT came out with a fiscal 16 capital investment plan, a 1 year. Initially, there was no mention of 495-90. We asked that it be included because there was a section in the plan that included projects of economic significance like Alston 90, South Station expansion, Green Line extension, and we said, we think 495-90 belongs there too. They subsequently added it. And in the 5-year capital plan, the draft that just came out, it is also included as a key linkage. So as we understand it, contract is, an RFP went out in the fall to pick a design consultant who would carry the project to a 25% design phase. This is a massive project. We're talking on the range of $160 to $280 million, depending on which design they go with. And it would be dedicated ramps, so it would solve a lot of problems. The other challenge that MassDOT is facing is because of the move to all electronic tolling, it becomes that much more urgent to address that interchange. While right now you think of the toll booth as an impediment, as creating traffic or a choke point, it's also a safety measure in terms of the weaving traffic. So they can't just remove the current toll booth in the current configuration. So we feel in a lot of ways that helps our argument in terms of pushing the project forward. So it is clearly a priority of Secretary Pollack's. And we're pleased by that, but we will continue to push that it keeps moving in the right direction. I think as of now, and I do have presentations on our website relative to this, they would like to advertise the project in 2020. So that's what we're looking at. And I would note too that it is the first priority, but we continue to push for improvements at 495-9 as well. Currently in the same long-range transportation plan that the Upton project is included in is about 11 million for improvements at 495-9. Not on the ramps, but along the roadway in the stretch from Computer Research Drive in Westboro down to Crystal Pond Road in Southboro. So to make some improvements there.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good to hear.
No, again, I thank you for taking the time to meet with us tonight. I think your mission and your statements that you made tonight are truly on point, with respect to making sure that the administration knows that there's other communities out there that have the same needs as the one, in proximity of Boston. And so I thank you for that push. I also thank you for the continued push on the TIP project on our High Street, Hartford Ave, Hopkinton Road project. That is critical to the town. Anybody that's ridden on that road, or driven on that road knows that the need to really do something with that road. So again, I thank you for your push on that end. And of course, the Chapter 90 money, as you said, it seems like it's never enough, but I think, we're, especially Upton, where we rely on it so
Right.
wholeheartedly, it's, anything we can do to increase those amounts would be absolutely critical and crucial to us. But again, thank you for all your efforts, and
Happy to do so. And I would note with the Chapter 90 money, at least we're seeing it come out quicker this year.
yes,
So that's not more money, but it is a benefit to know what to expect.
yep, absolutely, no, thank you.
So on my end, I want to echo what my fellow board members said. Thank you for coming out and sharing what your information you have. We appreciate all the support we can get. I know one of the things I think the community struggle on is, you mentioned earlier, is the water, wastewater. We're a small community. We don't have a lot of users on our wastewater plant. We understand the desire to expand that, but to have betterments on everybody's property, if we move down a quarter mile, half mile, to add somebody $50,000 to their tax bill is really not appropriate. And we don't have any infrastructure in our zoned areas for industrial commercial growth. So if we could somehow get some aid to make sure we can expand that, that would be beneficial. I just reached out recently, someone came to me and said they have a 20,000 square foot building they want to put in, but they need water and sewer. It's difficult for us to meet those needs. In our downtown area, we have that, we don't have the square footage
Right.
available. So if whatever aid we can get, that would help the community and would help
Yeah, and
businesses.
I would encourage looking at the MassWorks grants. I think most people think of it as a transportation, an opportunity for transportation improvements relative to development. But we've seen several of our communities successful with water-related grants from MassWorks. So, and particularly if you have a private developer that's, committed, that's what's needed. So, and your community compact town,
Yes.
which is another box they check off for the MassWorks application, so that's a positive too. I would also note is I'm trying to schedule a meeting with Sean Cronin to come and speak to our 3 committees about the community compact, and we'll be reaching out to Blythe relative to that, because we'd like to invite communities who have participated to kind of share their experience as well, if they're interested. We feel it's a good opportunity for our communities to kind of talk to each other, hear from the state, talk to each other about, the ones who are participating, what benefits they've seen, in sharing that with the communities who haven't done it yet, so they can get a better understanding of it.
Okay. So, gentlemen, is there anything else?
No, very well done.
Well, thank you very much, and, if there's anything you need from us, just let us know.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Senator? Good evening.
Good evening, Sarah.
Seeing you.
Nice to see you. Was I late or?
You're right on time, Senator.
Well, good evening. Nice to see all of you. As I'm getting used to doing now for eight years, I'm here speaking always on someone else's budget. Usually I'm here on the governor's budget and not defending it or attacking it. And now I'm talking the previous governor to the current governor. This year, actually, because of the timing, I'm lucky enough to be here talking about the House budget, which just got released last week. And there are some changes to the House budget from what the governor did. The House will be doing the budget this week. They're debating, and then we will be going in the following, next month, May, the second or third week of May. So I wish I could be here speaking on behalf of what we will do in the budget, but I don't know if you've gotten an update as far as the House is done. The governor's fiscal year budget, House 2, proposed to increase unrestricted general government aid, UGG, by $42 million over the current fiscal 2016 levels of $1.2 billion, which was an increase of 4.3%. While over the past several years, general local aid funding has increased with only slightly above inflation, it still remains 41.4% below fiscal year 2001 levels. The governor's proposed budget would reduce funding for the Municipal Regionalization and Efficiencies Incentive Reserve to $5.6 million. This marks a 48.1% reduction from the amount that had already been reduced by $3 million as a result of the governor's 9C budget cuts. In doing so, the fiscal year 2017 budget proposal would increase available funds from $2 million to $2.65 million, which would be the Community Compact Program, incentive program to support best local practices. So the Municipal Regionalization and Efficiency Incentive Reserve Fund is the same as the Community Compact Fund. Similarly, House Ways and Means budget increases UGG by $42.1 million, reflecting a 4.3% growth over fiscal year 2016. The committee also dedicates an additional resource for a number of key municipal accounts. The proposed budget boosts funding for special education circuit breaker by $5 million, for charter school reimbursements by $5 million, and for regional school transportation by $1 million. With this combination of $159 million increase, the state is providing the levels of historic local aid to all of the 351 cities and towns in the 2017 budget. It provides $4.608 billion for Chapter 70 aid. It provides $1.022 billion for unrestricted government aid, provides $276.6 million for circuit breaker reimbursement, and $85.5 million for charter school reimbursement. The House and Senate passed legislation, I think Jessica just talked about this, passed legislation relative to the Chapter 90 funding for the local road repairs. The bill authorizes $200 million in local infrastructure aid. The legislation was signed by the Governor Baker last week. The modest increase in aid between 2017 and 16 is because the administration released $100 million in Chapter 90 funding last year, in addition to the $200 million local aid repair bill. What we have for numbers is for the town of Upton, for fiscal year 2017, Chapter 90 funding is $300,917. In fiscal year 2016, it was $300,784, which is an increase of $133,000. Statewide, the governor's fiscal 2017 budget proposal increases Chapter 70 aid by $72 million, which is $4,584,008,961, which reflects an increase of about 1.6%. The governor's budget is based off of a $20 per pupil increase and a reduction from the $25 per pupil minimum increase secured by the legislature in fiscal year 2017. I think if you remember last year, the governor's budget also originally proposed a $20 per pupil minimum increase, and the legislature increased that to $25. Conversely, the fiscal year 2017 House Ways and Means budget increases Chapter 70 aid by 2.3% over fiscal year 2016, and the House Ways and Means Chapter 70 aid provides $33.7 million in additional education aid over the governor's fiscal 2017 budget, which amounts to a total of $4,607,665,795. For fiscal year 2017, the Upton-Mendon Regional School District, the House Ways and Means budget appropriation is $12,253,186. That's an increase over fiscal year 2016 by $121,605. The governor's House 2 budget, so the governor's budget, was $12,175,801. His increase was roughly $44,220. The final budget from fiscal year 2016 was $12,131,581. So From the governor's budget, you went up $42,000. To the House budget, went up to $121,000, and hopefully the Senate will keep that trend. So, the governor's fiscal year 2017 budget, House 2, places the Mendon-Upton Regional School District enrollment at 2,211 students, which marks a continuing trend in decreasing enrollment size, down as many as 363 students from fiscal year 2009. The governor's fiscal 2017 budget sets the Mendon-Upton Regional School District's foundation budget at $20,452,434, which is a $1,023,200 decrease over fiscal year 2016. The district's net minimum contribution within House 2 is set at $13,459,709, which is a $552,646 increase over fiscal year 2016.
How percentage increase again?
That was a $552,646
$500,000.
increase over fiscal year 2016. The House 2, which is the governor's budget, Chapter 70 aid to the district is expected to rise by $44,220 over fiscal year 2016 to $12,175,801. This reflects a continuing trend since fiscal year 2011 of municipalities not receiving a decrease in Chapter 70 aid. Fiscal year 2016, state education dollars funded approximately 56.5% of the district's foundation budget, which translates to about 41.9% of the district's actual net school spending. And I know you're very familiar with the vocational school here. The administration has recently announced an $83.5 million program for vocational equipment. This will help offset costs for member towns within the vocational school districts. The funding is derived from a mixture between fiscal year 2017 budget funding and bond funding authorized by the legislature that would provide $75 million over 5 years for a new capital authorization to fund grants for equipment to expand and improve career technical education programs, building on a $9.2 million skills capital grant program announced this year, a $7.5 million funding for work-based learning grants, including nearly doubling support for school-to-career connecting activities to $5.5 million, and doubling support for dual enrollment to $2 million, to expand and replicate STEM-focused early college career pathways, including middle school curriculum and workplace experience and learning programs, and $1 million for new career technical partnership grants funded through the Federal Perkins Act grant funding to strengthen relationships between vocational schools, comprehensive high schools, and employers. The governor's budget also uses a new economically disadvantaged measure for counting low-income students. This measure essentially uses the number of kids directly certified for school meals instead of using free and reduced price meal headcounts, which is used to date. However, this new economically disadvantaged measure identifies many fewer low-income students than does the traditional free and reduced price meal applications. And that's a brief update of what's currently before the coming out of the House. We also, and I don't know if you're interested at all in discussion of charter schools, what we've, the legislature, okay, no. Well, the only reason I bring that up is it's called the RISE Act. The Senate, as you know, the governor proposed a charter school bill to lift the cap. Last legislative session, the Senate, the House, the governor and the House passed a cap lift for charter schools. The Senate did not. So the governor filed one again, and the House was not going to file the charter school reform or the cap legislation until the Senate enacted. The Senate, as part of the Senate, the Senate President put a team together to draft language to address this issue, And as part of what they call the RISE Act, which is the cap lifting for charter schools, the referendum that's currently on the ballot for 2019 for charter schools to lift the cap, if that were to pass, that would go into effect in 2019. The legislation that the Senate put forth, if it were to be adopted by the House and signed by the governor, would go into effect in 2019. And what our legislation does is we take the Foundation Budget Review Commission recommendations and we fully fund those. Starting from 2019, over a 7-year period, we would do a full funding of the Foundation Budget Review Commission recommendations, and we would also fully fund charter school reimbursements. The reason I mention this is that it's over $1.2 billion worth of new additional aid to the Chapter 70 that would be coming back to our cities and towns. So that is currently where we stand with the budget. I'll be love to answer any questions I can for you.
Gentlemen, open up.
Yes, you had mentioned Chapter 70. I think you showed a substantial increase. Those, we don't show that significant an increase. I saw the look on the town manager at the
Okay.
same time.
Dancing a jig if it's
We'd
true.
like it. I think you said there was a $110,000 increase, but
Oh.
I don't have the
I don't
exact.
track
I had
those close.
121,605. I think I wrote it down.
Yeah.
But anyway, any Chapter 90 you'd like to give us, we'll
Well,
gladly accept.
the government aid, the UGGA, we have as being $21,000 increase.
Yes,
Right.
Okay. And the
511,
Chapter 70, we have as 133,000. And
I wrote down 121,605, I thought, amended nothing.
And then for the House Ways and Means budget, if it were to pass, it's $121,605 over.
because it's $55 a student rather than 20, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So I think one of the issues we're probably dealing with is that we work, the school
Right.
committee was working on the budget the budget for the governor, and, we're still evolving.
Yes.
So we
Yep.
don't know those numbers.
One thing, as the town manager just brought up, one thing that the House did, which I'm hoping again the Senate followed suit, because I had actually, myself and some colleagues had sent a letter to both House and Senate Ways and Means, asking it to go to $50, the minimum per pupil increase. And as we've seen, the House has actually come out higher at $55. So they've substantially increased that funding. So.
No, I don't have anything to add, no.
Jim?
No, again, I thank you for coming out this evening and meeting with us. As Selectman Fleming said, I sound like a broken record sometimes, but Chapter 90 money is always important
Yep.
to us here in Upton, especially where, our tax base is 93-94% residential, so we don't have a large commercial base to assist us with the roads and road repair and stuff like that. So any Chapter 90 money increases would be beneficial. And the current challenges we have too are the infrastructures that go along with these roads. We currently have I'll call it the Bob Fleming Bridge, down on,
This is starting to catch. So everyone's.
You're hearing it throughout town?
So, to be very clear, I think it's absurd the amount of money that we're required to fix a bridge that's no more than 20 feet long and.
we have a bridge that is, we're partnering with the town of Milford, because the town of Milford owns half of the bridge, and we ultimately own half of the bridge. That is in desperate need of repair. And the estimates that we're getting to do, first of all, the engineering to do it is extravagant. And then the repairs, they're looking at, I think, 1 million or
Up to $1 million.
up to $1 million to do this bridge repair. So any money that's there to assist small towns like ours for these, infrastructure repairs, again, that's, if it is $1 million, is it $500,000?
Beyond the Chapter 90 money.
Beyond the Chapter 90 money, that's
Chapter money can be
$500,000 that we
used
need
for
to
that,
come
but
up,
it's,
that we need to come up with to do these infrastructure repairs. So anything that can assist us with that.
The bridge is 21 and a half feet long. There is a grant program for small bridges that are no more than 20 feet long, so it's 1.5 feet too long for that program.
If you want, I'll go measure it with a special ruler.
And the Complete Streets requirement would have us putting a sidewalk across it, but there's no sidewalk leading to or from the bridge on either side. So, if that can be waived, that will help, because the current head walls that lead up to the bridge the width wouldn't support adding a sidewalk. So it just becomes more
It
expensive
compounds it all.
than just replacing the bridge deck.
Can you put this into an email so we can?
Absolutely.
Okay, then we can try to
That'd be great.
advocate for
Make
it.
me very happy.
That'd
So
be
this,
great.
this is the town-owned bridge, correct?
Jointly with Milford.
Jointly with Milford.
Milford, but, so it's a municipal bridge?
Yes.
Okay, all right,
It's all on a roadway.
Thank you, Senator.
okay. And it's $1 million, you said,
Approximately.
for the repair or the design?
And
replacement.
engineered estimates right
Everything,
now.
all
are
total
coming in
Everything.
cost, okay.
About $1 million with a $100,000 engineering cost.
Okay. And hopefully, I believe, I've had a staff member coming to the selectmen
Yes.
meeting, so he's been,
Yes, he's been attending.
I've been getting notes and been kept apprised of what's going on in town, so.
So thank you.
So I know, I don't want to speak out of turn for the school department, but I know they're always talking about the calculation of the foundation budget and our target shares. I know there's talk about changing that formula or having the formula at least evaluated, see if it could be changed. So I want to echo that because that is, it's over 50% of our budget. As the target share keeps increasing, our dependency on that, we're losing aid. It makes it more of a struggle for us. We have to take it from someplace else. So whatever we can make that formula as accurate as we can would be appreciated.
Yeah, the Review Commission last session did a lot of work, and they've documented at least $1 billion in costs that they feel the state should be, the state has not been keeping up with to support this, to support our municipalities, our schools. So hopefully, if our legislation, if our charter school funding legislation can go through, it would include that, which I think would be a big relief to a lot of our cities and towns to have that cost.
And I guess the last thing, again, is that what Dr. Jessica is that in our industrial zoned areas, we don't have any infrastructure water. And for the town to do that on their own in advance of a company coming, because we're truly competing against our neighbors who have that structure there. I think it's delusional if we think a company's gonna come in and say, well, I'll pay for that and do that, where they can go to our neighbor and they already have it on the street for them. If we could expand that and get some aid, because it'd be very difficult for us to foot that bill and pass it on to our taxpayers with the hope that business would come in. If there's any grants or any available services to help, that we could do something on that, because I know there's a business that wants to come to town, but they need water and sewer.
Well, if there's anything, being creative, if you can think of anything, if we have an economic development bill come before us, that could be a vehicle for us to try to put forth an initiative for you. So I guess if
Okay.
we can talk tomorrow or
Sure.
outside of this, and maybe try to figure something out that we can try to help with.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else for the board to ask? Any questions? Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Nice seeing you. Thank you. Do you want to copy of all this with all the numbers?
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, so we'll next move on to recognition. Gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, it's not so much recognition as it is an expression of sympathy on behalf of the board. Almost a lifelong resident, moved here when he was 2 years old, Richard Randall. I personally knew his dad, and I knew his son from scouting, and unfortunately, Rich passed away just last week after living in this town since 1959. Almost a lifelong resident. So I'd like to extend condolences to the family. He was a member of the Cemetery Commission. His father was very active in town government, and the family was contributed to our quality of life in this town. So respects to the family and our sympathies.
Thank you. Very well said, Bob.
And I would also, again, like to express sympathy. This past week, the town of Upton had a couple of fires that Chairman Pickard will be commenting about, but tragically, the fire on Centennial Court. An individual lost his life. He was a friend of mine. His name was Scott Satrow. I knew Scott for many years. We were both antiquers and pickers together, and knew him and his son Jake. And Jake was trying to make it over at Valley Tech, and Scott wanted him to come to Valley Tech. So, but again, Scott tragically lost his life at Centennial Court. I wish the best to his family, and I send my heartfelt condolences to his son and his family.
Thanks, Jim. So I want to recognize we had two major structure fires in the community over the last week or so. One was at Centennial Court. I want to commend to the fire department and the police department for what they did there. And also we had a major fire over on Hopkinton Road. Officer Rankin, in the middle of the night, was able to stop, get the people out of the house. They have extensive damage to their garage and part of to the building, but it could have been a lot worse if he hadn't been able to stop and do something. So we will continue on that recognition another night and have those people in here to give them some more recognition. I also want to reach out to the men's club. I noticed the men's club was doing their beautification to the intersection of 140 and Hartford Ave. They were doing all the mulching and planting and all that type of stuff, which they do every year, to make that intersection as good looking as they can. I appreciate that hard work for their part. So is there anything else, gentlemen? No? Okay. Blythe, if we could have the manager's report?
Sure. Senator already covered, and Jessica, a couple of things. But yes, the MS4 permit did come out last week, and we will be attending the meetings she suggested to make sure we're on top of that. I know the Stormwater Coalition has been, that we're involved with. In fact, they just recently won a $50,000 grant from the DEP to continue the joint efforts of the 28 communities, so that has continued to benefit us, and we're very proud of that. The receiver has been appointed for the 14 North Main Street property, and he is due back in court on May 4th with a budget and a plan for the court to approve. Hopefully, the court will do that on that day, and then work can begin after that. So we're very hopeful that we will see that coming along as we get into spring, and at least from the outside, that property start to look a lot better than it does today. And then I just want to give you an update about some activity of the Board of Assessors. For a number of years, they have granted reductions to some properties in town that have wetlands on the property. But for a number of years in the past, there wasn't a structured process by which the wetlands were verified. The Board of Assessors has been working to correct that, and letters went out to about 50 or so community residents in the last couple of weeks telling them that they needed to verify that they have the wetlands are the amount that they have been granted a relief for over the years. They need to go through a process with the Conservation Commission in order to continue to get that reduction in the future, starting in July. We've had a couple of residents into Town Hall a little bit unhappy that they have to go through a process to verify that to continue to receive the reduction. I just wanted to make you aware of it, and we're working with each one to help them through that process if they want to avail themselves of it. So, thank you.
Yeah. Gentlemen, any questions?
No problem.
Okay. So we'll move on to discussion items. First is to discuss a motion to approve a resolution calling for full funding of the Foundation Budget Review Commission's recommendations. So as we had talked earlier, let me get back to that page. My tablet here went off. There we go. Trying to get there. So through the multi-board, this Board of Selectmen has been talking with the school committee for the last 4 years. Bob, would you say 4 years, 5 years?
4 or 5.
About how the foundation budget is the driver of the school funding and how that affects the town's target share of what the town's required to pay towards that school budget. There's been a lot of discussion about the formula and how that's determined, It is a very complicated and not a straightforward formula. So there has been a number of calls to the legislature to review that, how that formula is determined and how it's calculated to make it a little bit easier to determine if it's accurate or not, and also to change some of the constants that are in it so that the calculations are favorable to communities like Upton and Mendon, and smaller communities are not so beneficial to the city communities. So we have a motion before us to ask the commission did some study, they made a recommendation, and now to activate those recommendations, they need to do some, appropriate some money through the legislature, and there is a motion before us to endorse that.
No, Mr. Chairman, I think you would, I think at the last meeting when we had the chairman of the Mendon Upper School Committee here, we had communications with respect to this resolution that we're addressing to the state for full funding. I think I know the senator was rattling off of, quite a few numbers, but I wrote down, I think the decrease in the Mendon Upton Foundation budget this year was $1 million, I believe, $1 million plus that I heard him saying. So again, I think we discussed it at the last meeting in depth, and again, I'm ready to act accordingly on this.
Mr. Chairman, to make motion, I'd read the resolution. It's
Please.
stated.
Yeah.
I'd like to motion that the board adopt a resolution stating that for the full funding of Foundation Budget Review Commission recommendations, whereas the Massachusetts Foundation Budget Review Commission identified 2 areas, employee health insurance and special education, where the Massachusetts Foundation budget significantly understates the true cost of educating students in the Commonwealth and has failed to keep pace with rising costs. Whereas the underfunding means the cost of providing a quality education has increasingly been borne by local communities, most often at the expense of other vital municipal operations. Whereas investing in education today leads to higher incomes and thus less investment in police, prisons, subsidized health care, low-income housing, welfare, etc. in the future. Whereas state and local economies are most effectively strengthened by investing in education and increasing the number of well-educated workers. Therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Upton, through the Upton Board of Selectmen, calls on the Massachusetts Legislature and the Governor of Massachusetts to fully fund and adopt the recommendations of the Foundation Budget Review Commission in the immediate future.
I would second that motion.
Let's show that as unanimous action of the board, and we will sign it at the conclusion of the meeting. Okay? So I'm gonna jump, if you don't mind, in our order here. Initially, we were supposed to talk about the budget, and then talk about a motion to recommend a tax title revolving fund, and then go to the annual town warrant. I'd like to bring the tax title revolving fund first, and then talk about the budget and then the annual meeting warrant, if that's okay with the board. Ken, can you come forward?
Good evening, gentlemen, ladies.
Hi. So it is the board's understanding that Ken, you requested a revolving fund
Yes.
for your tax titles. Through deliberations with town council, we found out that we have to agree with that before it can go to the town. The board has to agree with that before it goes to the town meeting for a vote. So you want to give us an overview of
Yes,
what you want to
the cost that, I do a lot of churning of costs that, and those costs are advertising costs and charges that we get from the Worcester Registry of Deeds. And basically, I put all those charges against a tax lien. Ultimately, when they get redeemed, those costs come back to us and get churned back in. And so there's really a tremendous amount of this churning of money that goes out as at no cost to the town, because it's always being paid by the taxpayer that may be delinquent. However, it's becoming more and more difficult for not only Upton, but for other towns to predict what those costs are. As little as 4 years ago, I had expenses of $10,000. In the last 3 years, it's been 15. I just put in for this year $20,000. And so it's just make paperwork kind of thing. And the Department of Revenue has recognized that. That's why they've written an IGR that describes exactly what happens, what is included, what isn't included. The taxes always go back to the town, the interest always goes back to the town. It's all these other peripheral costs that get churned around through vouchers, warrants, and all that sort of thing that I have to worry about, my expense budget, when really, we always get it back.
So what we're essentially doing is, in the past, in our operational budgets, we had money set aside to do this process. You're asking to use the money that comes in to pay for what's going out, so we're not really, we're taking it out of the budget and just gonna have the revolving fund all these operations.
Exactly. Yes, that's it.
Okay. Gentlemen, is there any questions?
No?
No, you answered my question. The question was going to be, where did we take the funds in the past to do this? And that question was clearly answered now, so.
Blake?
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
So the amount that's in the warrant article is for $15,000. That's the amount that Ken has proposed. I just want to point out, town council wanted me to pass on to you that if it's proposed in the future, change that amount, that needs to be voted jointly by the Selectmen and the Finance Committee. And then we did adjust the operating budget, assuming that this is going to pass the town meeting, adjusted the operating budget down to $10,000 next year, so that Ken's office would have seed money, if you will, to start the process on July 1 before he's able to collect money to go into the fund, and then hopefully after a while it becomes self-sustaining.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Okay. So we prepared to make a motion?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I motion that the board authorize a tax title revolving fund be established with an initial limit of $15,000, subject to future adjustments of thresholds based upon a vote by both the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen.
Let's second that motion.
Show that as unanimous action of the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So now our next discussion item will be the budget. And Paul, do you want to come up and be part of this? No?
I didn't know I was.
Well, you're here, so I'm giving you the invitation if you want to participate or not.
I'll maintain my position.
Okay. So I think it's important to note that we've been diligently working on the budget since the beginning of the calendar year. The departments have been working on this, and we've been striving to maintain our services and also be respectful of our citizens and have a zero increase if possible. I think to date, we're talking about maybe an 8-cent, 7-cent increase in our taxes, and even that is possibly being conservative, because we may actually have less than that depending on the actions taken at the town meeting. We may be less than that. So I think our initial goal of trying to maintain our tax rate is working, and we are definitely going to strive to do that as we move forward. We're also proposing to make some changes in our process slightly, where in the past we've always appropriated all the stabilization and all the capitals in the spring. We are talking about doing that in the fall, when we have the ability to really know what our free cash is and how much money is available after we've been certified. Our budget's been, previous years been certified. So it is a little different, and it may cause some people some anxiety, change anxiety. But we feel it's a more prudent way to do this, and a more transparent way, I think, to do it. We're actually not going to be guessing on or dealing with estimates. We're going to actually deal with real numbers and hopefully know what we can afford to do. So other than that, I'm going to open up to the board to have any discussion.
As you stated earlier at the start of the meeting, we will be meeting with the Finance Committee tonight, and I just want to commend them for what I feel is a very collaborative process. We're all working well together. I think the goal of a zero rate increase is achievable. I think based upon the fact that we will be moving to what we want to call a more actual budget versus a forecasted budget. And we will have hard numbers to deal with, that when we make decisions, we will know the definite outcome versus projected and forecast numbers. So I think it's a great process, and I think once people understand what's being done, I think it will be embraced. So.
Okay, Jim?
No, again, I commend the FinCom and the conversations that we've had and the approach that everybody's on board with respect to the citizens and the tax rate. So I feel good at our approach. I feel good that, without getting into depth, because I don't think I could spend 30 minutes on it, people still understand it, but we, you know, again, we're not, as the chairman said, we're not working on assumptions, or the new approach is that we're not working on assumptions with this approach. We're working with, waiting to see when certifications are done, and we're spending the money that we know we have, and rather than we think we're going to have. So again, I think this is a great process. I think the taxpayers and citizens will be very pleased with it. And I'm very happy with the approach.
So I know, I hope that both you gentlemen have been looking at the budget, checking the line items. I sent some comments to the town manager, some things I thought were an irregularity, and they have corrected those. There were some minor things they found that was corrected. Also, she's been asking about the cover page we have, and I think personally, there are a few lines that we, based on the last joint meeting we had with the FinCom about trying to add some more information on. Myself looking at it, I think it actually adds a little bit more confusion. So I'd rather, if you guys can pull that up, you know, we cut off the lines, the value of 2.5% tax levy increase, take that off, the less the FY 2016 free cash, the less the favorable balance, potential impact, tax rate impact. I think that only adds, it's something we haven't had in the past, and I think we should eliminate it.
I had the same conversation with the town manager. I eliminated it. All it's gonna do is create confusion.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, we agree.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
There's gotta be a mistake.
and that was
Just accept it.
by, well, I was meeting with town manager last week, and we had some discussion. After she gave me an attaboy for reading the budget and finding a few things, that was brought up, and we both, I think we
Okay.
both agree it's
All right, Jim?
confusing.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Paul? Now you want to talk?
I would likewise agree with that. There's, you know, there's a little too much information here that could be interpreted.
Well, it's confusing.
Could be interpreted the right way or a different way,
Yeah.
you know, and as you alluded to earlier, I commend Madam Manager over there. You know, you're a couple of atta-girls for, you know, there's not a lot of work went into this with the formulas and trying to come up, get the right numbers
Yeah.
to get this to come up right. And this is different. What we're showing here is
Right.
different. I don't think anybody's going to be accusing us of hiding anything. As long as this is, you know, explained. You and I had talked, and we had talked earlier about some type of a PowerPoint presentation, you know, a couple of slides, that might help to explain this, you know, and,
Yeah, so another change that I've talked to the manager about, and I'll also with the FinCom briefly, is that before well, as the meeting first opens, to have a little overview PowerPoint presentation that kind of highlights certain areas of the budget, and talking about how we're taking this conservative approach to really appropriate our capital needs in the fall, at the end of the fall, after everything is certified. It is a change for us, but I think it's the financial departments and the Board of Selectmen agree it's probably a better approach, a more conservative approach, and we'll be able to really regulate better what we do financially and not have less risk. So that's something we're going to be moving forward with. Hopefully that PowerPoint will explain that. Another great tool we have for people to look at in their spare time when they have insomnia is to go on the town website. We have what they call a financial tab with ClearGov. It really, historically, we can go back and look at how the town has performed against similar towns that this website, through its criteria, determines what is similar to Upton, and it shows how we perform. I think in most areas we do very, very well. We're in the first quartile of spending, which means we're spending much less than the majority of the communities in our similar communities. So I hope everybody has a chance to look at that stuff and be prepared for the meeting, and also if they have questions, address them appropriately. And the FinCom, again, will be meeting and have their recommendation of written narrative they usually provide. So is there anything else, gentlemen?
Nope.
Okay.
could I add
Yes,
one more
Paul.
thing along this line?
Sure, Paul.
We're talking about change, and we're doing things a little bit different. As you know, Mr. Chairman, I've advocated for this for a long time, to have 2 town meetings, a spring town meeting and a fall town meeting. Well, it seems we're moving to that. I think we should follow the lead of some of these other towns around, that we have town meeting, and then we have the town election. It's not the way we don't do things that way, but it gives the incumbent the opportunity to be part of the town meeting. If you get an election, you're gonna change a member of the board, perhaps, and all of a sudden, I think it happened when one of you came in, you got elected, and here's your first thing, you're coming to talk about a warrant and a town meeting that you had really no
Well, I'm
part
sure it
in.
happened to all 3 of us, because I know it happened when I became a member of the board. I'm sure it happened, it's just the way it goes here.
But I'm saying, to eliminate that situation, I know Hopkinton does it, Grafton does it, Milford does it. I'm not even sure Mendon does it.
They do.
Mendon just started to do that now. By putting your town meeting and then your town election, it eliminates the burden of the newly elected coming in and being faced with, trying to speak to something that they weren't really a part of formulating.
I'm gonna let
Something
Bob,
to think about going
I'm gonna let Bob answer that,
I
because
understand, we don't do it that way.
No, Bob, I think last year, Bob, it was part of a committee that looked at multiple changes, and I'm gonna let Bob address that now.
Although there is a positive to it, there is a negative, and the negative is it gives an individual an opportunity to use a forum at the town meeting to run for office and to expound on their virtues and get up and speak about all the things they've done and use it as a podium. And therefore, it becomes less about what's good for the town and more about somebody trying to get reelected. So there's a negative to it too. And I think we're a little off track because we were talking about the budget.
Budget, yeah.
But I know Paul long enough, so I respect his input. I believe what he's saying, but.
Brought it in as long
No,
as we're talking about things new.
But we have looked at it. We deliberated on it quite a bit last year as an option, so it's still under consideration. I don't think we buried it.
No, I don't think it's been buried. I said one of the things that committee looked at was changing this process, and that was discussed, and that's why it was done. And there was one other thing we talked about on that committee, I can't remember what
It's
it was.
mandating a date for all
Oh, yeah.
processes to come in.
Right.
And that date could not be rigid
Right.
because of the inflexibility of the Commonwealth and how they,
Yeah.
as an example, the school has to certify a budget long before the state votes theirs, which is ludicrous,
Yeah.
so.
So, but thanks for the
Okay.
input, Paul. Okay. So let's move on now to the warrant. Unless, are we done with the budget? Yep. Okay, so let's move on to the warrant. Nope, I'm on the wrong thing. Sorry.
I'm there, let me know if you need any help there.
Yeah, Jim, I need as much help from you as I can get. All right. Come on. So this year's budget, the warrant articles for the town, I believe we're down to 27, Tom, wasn't it? 28, and we typically are in the 40s. So hopefully we'll be able to get this done in one night. The major change in the warrant, again, is we're not doing the extensive capital request for capital purchases at this venue. We're gonna try to do that after, in the fall, when everything's been certified. We do have some capital purchase we're requesting. One is turnout gear for the fire department. We're also looking for radios for the police department. And our roadways, we're looking, which would be, I guess, I don't consider that necessarily capital, I consider more of a maintenance issue, but it is a large dollar item that we'll be doing. Is there any other capital I forgot about that we're purchasing? I think that's it, okay. So, gentlemen, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to discuss this per article, or do you just want to talk in general terms?
Mr. Chairman, where this has been posted on the town website.
Yeah.
It is available to all citizens, I think, to go through this. I think, there's
Yeah.
redundancy.
Yeah. Jim?
No, I think this has been on the agenda for the last 2 2 or 3 meetings. I think we're on version number 4. So I think it's well done, I think it's well managed, and again, as the chairman said, we looked at all the capital items and made the determination which ones could be deferred to fall and which ones we need to act on in the spring. So I think this is a well-managed and a well-prepared warrant.
Okay, so gentlemen, we'll have a motion to execute the warrant.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen execute the warrant for the annual town meeting of 5 May 2016 as submitted before us this evening.
I would second that motion.
Show that as unanimous action of the board, and we will sign at the conclusion of the meeting. So our next item is scholarships, to discuss scholarships. Every year, the board requests the local school districts, their guidance departments to notify eligible students who are looking for scholarships to apply for ours. There was a policy that we have for that regarding the number of scholarships we can give out. We have 6 from the Racine, we have 1 from the Bates, and 1 from the Ramsey. Thank you. I just was having a little moment there. So, gentlemen, I know I have reviewed mine. So how do we want to proceed here? Because part of this, we're always trying to be transparent, but we're also trying to, we've been asked to act on this tonight and kind of keep it a surprise for the students. So,
Mr. Chairman, as in the
yeah.
past, we'll refer the item number, ID number versus name, correct?
yeah, there was, we had one added. It
That
had
would
to
be
at
13.
13,
Not that that's an unlucky.
right? We're all agreeing to that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, all right, so I'm gonna use the ID number, and, the identifier. I guess I'll poll everyone, right, or how do you want to do this? Every year we struggle with this.
I would say we just do the ID number, and then we identify if we
If we
recommend
feel it's scholarship or not? Okay. All right, so, ID number 1, I recommend, for a scholarship, I recommend the Ramsey Scholarship. Number 2, I'll go through my whole list,
Okay.
if we can do that. Number 2, I do not recommend a scholarship for. Number 3, I do not recommend a scholarship for. Number 4, I do not recommend a scholarship for. Number 5, I recommend a scholarship from the Racine. Number 6, I recommend a scholarship from the Bates. Number 7, I recommend a scholarship from the Racine. Number 8, I do not recommend a scholarship. Number 9, I recommend a scholarship from Racine. Number 10, I recommend a scholarship from the Racine. Number 11, I recommend a scholarship from the Racine. Number 12, I recommend a scholarship from the Racine. Number 13, I recommend a scholarship from the Racine.
7, 1, 2,
Yes,
3, 4, 5, 6.
I know.
No, it's more, 6, yeah, 7.
All right. Are we, I guess, is somebody keeping track, or we,
Well, I can keep track, I guess.
if I may, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman? Number 1, I recommend also for the Ramsey. Number 2, I do not recommend a scholarship. Number 3, I would recommend a Racine. Number 4, I do not recommend a scholarship. Number 5, I recommend Racine. Number 6, I recommend Racine. Number 7, I do not recommend. Number 8,
7 you didn't recommend?
7, I do not recommend.
Okay.
8, I recommend Racine. Number 9, I recommend Bates. 10, I do not recommend. 11, I do not recommend. And 12 and 13, I recommend Racine and Racine.
Okay, Bob.
Mr. Chairman, this is good coincidence. Number 1, I recommend the Ramsey. That's unanimous, I guess.
Yeah.
Number 2, no scholarship. Number 3, no scholarship. Number 4, no scholarship. Number 5, Racine. Number 6, Racine. Number 7, no scholarship. Number 8, Racine. Number 9, Racine. Number 10, Racine. Number 11, Racine. 12, Racine. And number 13, the Bates Scholarship.
Okay. So, number one, we all agreed with the Ramsey? Correct? Okay, so that one's squared away. Number two, we've all agreed no scholarship. Number three, the majority agreed no scholarship.
Yep.
Number four, all of us unanimous, no scholarship. Okay? All right. So number five, we all agreed on the Racine. Is that correct? Did you have the Racine, Jim?
I had the Rustine, yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Number six, we had 2 Racines and 1 Bates. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes.
I was Rustine.
Yeah, and Jim was Racine,
I was
right?
Rustine.
Okay. So, I guess we make that change.
So that'll be Rustine?
That'd be Racine, right? This is Ramsey, let me get that right down. All right. How you doing, Sandy? You Following,
all right,
following with us? All right, so number 7, the majority said no, right?
Right.
Said no scholarship. Number 8, the majority said scholarship, and that was Racine, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So that's, so number 8 is gonna be the Rustine?
Racine, right?
Yep.
Number 9, we all agreed scholarship, but 2 of us had Racine and one had Bates. So are we back to Racine?
That'll be Rustine then?
Okay. Number 10, we had 2, right, at the scholarship, am I correct? At Racine?
Yeah.
So the majority will get the Racine. Number 11, we had 2 with the Racine, so the majority will get the Racine. Number 12, we had 3 at Racine, so that's okay. And number 11, we had, no, number 13, excuse me, number 13, we had 2 at Racine and 1 at Bates. Is that correct?
Right.
I think,
So we all agreed with,
did we run out of Rustine one?
I think we
We
were
have
on
no
it.
base.
Ran out of Rustine.
Yeah. All right, so,
Mr. Chairman, number 9, I did not have, you had Rustine, I assume.
I had Bates,
I'd be willing to make that a Bates.
Number 9,
Yeah,
okay?
13,
And then we'll make 13 Rustine?
yes.
That's
Is that okay?
There's still 7 Rustine.
this
Still
too many.
See, 1, 2, what is this? Oh, this is Racine, so let's
You
go.
only have 1 base.
Well, we have 1 Bates and 1 Ramsey, that's all we're
So
gonna
we
have
can,
anyway.
so now, we-
1 Ramsey is 1, and Bates is 9.
That's why we have 7.
1, 2,
And
3,
7
4,
Racine.
5, 6, 7.
See, every one of them is deserving.
Yeah, they're all, everybody's deserving.
No, I know.
Everybody's
It's a
deserving.
real tight race.
So the reason I didn't pick number 8 is because of, part of the criteria was for, not community service so much, that was one of the applicants, but going to school for public service. And I don't believe that candidate listed that as something they were doing. So that's why I questioned number 8 myself.
But again, it's public, but again,
Yeah.
number 8 is public service.
He's done a tremendous amount, there's no doubt about it. They all have.
You know,
This is the tough part, they're all deserving.
I'm going to throw something out. Because it's such a deadlock, what if the board, and I know this is really abstract, so forgive me, if we went and took one of those and appropriated from the William Knowlton Trust, $500 to meet a scholarship, it wouldn't be a Racine scholarship, but it would be an eligibility for a Town of Upton scholarship to make as an identifier, because I really don't, I feel real uncomfortable scratching somebody to make a number. And that's what we'd be doing. So,
Well, I don't have a problem taking another, even though our policy says 6 from the Racine, it's a policy we created. I think, we have the ability to, that's really a guideline for us to follow. I think they all deserve it.
they
Especially
do.
the ones we're pretty clear on everybody that we agree with and disagree with.
Yeah.
So either we take it out of the Racine or we take it all in Knowlton. I think it's an excellent idea, Bob. Jim?
I will go with the, again, this is very difficult to always, where we have so many qualified, they meet the criteria of the,
May I put a motion on the
policy.
table?
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to motion that the board appropriate from the William Knowlton Fund $500 to be applied to the annual scholarship as applicants submitted tonight.
do we want to identify it to the specific number?
I don't think we have to.
We apply it to the scholarship.
The scholarship.
I would
Yeah.
second that motion.
I'll show there's unanimous action of the board.
So we have them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Do you have it?
You get them all?
9, right? 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yes.
5, 6,
Yeah.
7, 8, 9. Yep.
Okay, very good.
Great.
Where's
Wow.
mine?
Everything should go that well. Why don't we agree on everything?
That's always difficult. That's one of the most challenging things that
No,
we
I
have.
have, I have the bottom line.
Okay. So, let's go back to open this. So our next item is to award a contract for, or discuss awarding a contract for the wastewater sludge removal down at our treatment plant. Gentlemen? Blythe, actually, I'll let Blythe open this up.
There's a memo in your file from DPW Director, Mr. Roy, recommending that we award a contract for 3 years to Wastewater Services of Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Total contract will be for $77,750.40, starting in July. Waste sludge is a byproduct of the wastewater plant, needs to be removed and dealt with appropriately. We bid this out rather than doing it year by year, we bid it for 3 years. We had 2 bids. This is a new firm we haven't dealt with before, but their price was more competitive by about $5,000 a year. Their references check out well, and we think it's worthwhile to make a change. There'll be a slight savings for our ratepayers, and so we're asking that you approve that for the 3-year period and allow me to execute the contract.
Any questions from the board?
No.
No, it seems pretty clear. Jim?
No, again, everybody did due diligence, looking for references and everything, so I think this is, again, we have to get rid of the sludge.
We do.
Yeah, but it's nice that we're saving some money.
Absolutely.
Doing that with the bidding. Okay, gentlemen, somebody gonna make a motion?
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I motion that the board authorize town manager to enter into contract with Wastewater Services Incorporated for a 3-year contract to remove and treat sludge from the town's wastewater treatment plant.
Second that motion.
Show that as unanimous action of the board. So, our next item on our agenda is to proclaim, is that May 1st through the 7th? 2016 as Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. It is in our agenda here. I think most of us know someone who can have some challenges, and we should also recognize those challenges with having a proclamation. So, gentlemen, does anybody want to discuss this further, or just, Bob, you going to read it?
You know me.
Yeah, Bob, you like to read it, go ahead. I'm better you than me. I'll stumble
Okay.
too much.
I'd like to motion that the board adopt the following proclamation. Whereas the citizens of the town of Upton value their health and mental health and that of their families, therefore they are proud to support observances such as Children's Mental Health Week. And whereas 1 in 5 children has a diagnosable mental health disorder, and 1/2 of all lifetime instances of mental illness begin before age 14, and even some children and youth within the most intense need, and some who are insured may not receive services. And whereas children and youth with mental health needs in elementary, middle, and high school are more likely to be bullied, absent, suspended, expelled, or fail to graduate. And whereas learning to recognize the early warning signs of mental health needs and where to obtain the necessary support, assistance, and treatment gives children and youth better opportunities to lead full and productive lives. And whereas the participation and partnership of family members in the assessment and treatment of children and youth is essential to positive outcomes. And whereas our nation's future depends on the health and well-being of its families and their children. And whereas Children's Mental Health Week was developed by families of children with emotional, behavioral, and mental health needs to focus on the needs of their children and families. And celebrating this year's theme, Healthy Families, Resilient Children, mental health is a family affair. It is fitting to increase public awareness among all Upton citizens of this important issue. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Kenneth E. Picard, James Brochu, and Robert Fleming, members of the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Upton, Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim May 1st to 7th, 2016 as Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. That's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Did you repeat the motion? I'm sorry. I second that motion.
Did you miss something out of that?
I second that motion.
Let's show that as unanimous action of the board. All right, thank you for reading that, Bob.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll sign that also at the conclusion of the meeting. So is there we've gone through the entire agenda, is there anything else we want to bring up, gentlemen?
The only item is that there was an email sent out about Loyalty Day Parade coming up.
Change the time, 11 o'clock.
May 1st, Sunday, May 1st at 11 o'clock, Loyalty Day Parade, meeting at the Memorial School, as always, so
Okay.
always I think that means that spring is officially here when we see that Memorial Day Parade, when the Loyalty Day Parade comes, so.
So Blythe, we are scheduled to meet with the FinCom at 7:30, correct?
Now.
Now, so the board will recess to go to that meeting with the FinCom. Conclusion of that FinCom meeting, we will go into executive session. I'll read that motion now for the public record, but then we will come back, we'll do the executive session, only come back in the regular session to adjourn the meeting. The board will enter an executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Exception 3, to discuss strategy sessions with respect to collective bargaining if the chair declares an open meeting will be have a detrimental effect to the town's bargaining position. Okay? So that we will actually go into executive session later, after the FinCom meeting. Okay? So we are recessed.